Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for clicking and it means a lot that you guys keep clicking. If you guys keep clicking, I'll keep making. We did it once and we're gonna do it again. Today I'm gonna be looking at your guys' Survivor unpopular opinions, what you guys think, which I gotta say the first time I did this, some decent opinions, some super hot takes that I thought were wrong, and a little bit in the middle. I think it's super interesting to see what you guys think of the show, the people who don't have a platform. I'm trying to give you guys one, while also still laughing at the people who say ridiculous things like Redemption Island is the best season ever. So let's do it. As always, before we start, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and do all that good stuff because it's free, it's easy, and it really helps the channel out. All right, this first one says, unpopular opinion. I don't nullifiers are great advantages, especially when everyone knows that they exist, because it forces paranoia and interesting gameplay. People have to be aware of where the advantage is. People hated the I don't nullifier only because everyone was rooting for Janet. People only get mad if the I don't nullifier is used against fan favorites. Nobody cares if it's used against a non-fan favorite. Okay, a lot of things wrong about this. Very wrong. One, the times when the idle nullifier is a good advantage is so rare compared to the times when it's a bad advantage. For an example, in the 2 seasons following after its great start in David vs. Goliath, it flopped in 39. In fact, it actively did bad, and then in 40 it just wasn't even used at all. It does the exact opposite of what an advantage is supposed to do. An advantage is supposed to counteract the social gameplay being getting numbers. If you can't get numbers, your other option is advantages. It shouldn't be your only, but it is your other option. This does the opposite. It only strengthens that social gameplay. On top of that, if you want paranoia with an advantage, do the knowledge is power advantage, in which players constantly have to pass advantages back around and trust people. That to me is a better example of a paranoia advantage than this, which actively makes the game unfair. The next one says that chicken is the best first boot in Survivor history. I think that's absolutely hilariously stupid. I think if I had to give it to someone, you're probably giving it to like a Francesca, just based on the fact that in both of her times playing, she was one of the best players on her tribe and got taken out because of that. She ingrained pretty socially well, especially in Karamoan, and really got booted out both times. The first time because she was playing against a top 10 player of Survivor of all time, and that player realized that she was the only one who realized what he was doing. She was the only one not being led to the slaughter. And then the second time, she took control of the entire tribe, swing the vote onto, I believe it was Andrea, I think, or something like that, or maybe it was someone else. I forget. And then they flipped it back on her. Really, it was her alliance, and then they just picked her because why not get the person who's already been booted out again first. I think she's just a victim of circumstance, a very decent player, and had a bunch of potential. Next one says the beware advantages are great because it adds a whole new layer of strategy. You really have to work on your social game to make sure that you're not gone due to not voting. It also keeps idols from overlapping since there's only one per camp. I disagree in all of these senses. I think that the beware advantages, although it's not the worst twist ever, I think its biggest issue is that it takes away from the strategy more than it helps with taking away votes. It can help sometimes, like with that crazy Jenny boot from Survivor 42, but most of the time it just makes the pre-merge less interesting when people don't have votes. On top of that, I think that there's better ways to punish players for just relying on advantages, maybe other advantages to balance it out, but just having one advantage and having that advantage kind of be nerfed in a way where it's also a negative, it kind of makes it a disadvantage in a way. Even though it's supposed to be like a mixture of both, it just really doesn't make it feel good. This person says that Sarah is a top 5 winner of all time, and I think Sarah's a top 3 player of all time. So I would definitely agree with this. I think her mixture between her very aggressive strategy and her very soft but also kind of also aggressive social game is very impressive. How she wins over people and juries. On top of that, she can kind of mend her bonds after breaking them. Again, I think it's very important that I recognize that her first game is not very good. She goes out in the merge, gets outplayed by Tony, but her next 2 games might be one of the 2 best back-to-back performances by somebody in 2 appearances. It's absolutely impressive. And if it's not for Tony, the best player ever, being there when it's at war, I think she wins the season probably against Natalie and Michelle. So I think she is a fire challenge away from being arguably the best player ever. This guy says there should be more tribe swaps, like 4 pre-merge, and then at final 8 in the merge, have a swap back to 2 tribes for 2 rounds. You know, like in politics, when someone has a very radical opinion, this is very radical in Survivor terms. I mean, this is a interesting, very hot take. I would say this is a horrible idea. Unless you're doing returnees, maybe it could work with the returnee season. The idea of basically just swapping like every other round and then doing it at the merge as well. Even then, at the merge, I think it's a no-go ever. But I think with a newbie season, having to do all that character development on 4 different tribes, that's so many different combinations of people and alliances, I feel like it would be so confusing, similar to like a Game Changers. I think honestly, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth all of that maybe good strategy you get in the pre-merge for the utter confusion as to who knows who's been with who has an alliance with who, and the relationships at the merge would not be well developed. I personally don't think. This person just simply put, I like Game Changers, and like is a very subjective word, so I am kind of confused here. I like every season to some extent. I like even the worst possible Survivor season, I would still like for something, and it's still better than most television on TV. The biggest issue for me with Game Changers is the editing, 1, and then 2, the boot order is horrendous. It's exactly the opposite of what you would want. I think people get confused when they say that this cast was horrible. It was so bad. Maybe there were a few bad casts, but overall, this cast was perfectly fine. It's just that the 9 people that you needed to get to the merge all go out in the pre-merge. Other than Varner, everyone who goes out pre-merge needed to make the merge for this season to be good, and they just simply didn't. It was very unlucky, and I think just based off of how the tribes were made, those people were put in bad spots. It's unfortunate, and production, you really can't blame them because it is just the players' choices who gets to go home. Next guy says Jeff Probst needs to be replaced. What he likes is different from what the audiences want. I would agree with the second part. The first part is more complicated, right? Because who is Jeff's boss, right? Who has the power to do that? It's CBS, and right now CBS wouldn't even sit Jeff down and have a stern talking to with him about his behavior on the show and his vision and how horrible it is for the show and how unfun it is, despite the fact that he's so focused on it being really fun and dangerous. It's the exact opposite. It's bland and boring, and I think for me, Jeff needs to be sat down by CBS and had a stern talking to about it, because in the end, right, CBS is the one losing money. Jeff Probst is going to get paid the same amount every year, so CBS needs to sit him down and tell him how bad he's doing as a host. And if they don't, they're going to lose their show pretty soon. And that's it, guys. Do you guys want a part 3 of this? Should I put up another community post asking you guys what your unpopular Survivor opinions are? Let me know down below in the comments. As always, none of this happens without you guys. Without you guys, I'm just a weird guy speaking to a weird microphone. So as always, thank you. And if that's not, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.